I never thought one person could change my entire life, not in the way she did. Her name was Emma, and for the longest time, she was my everything. My reason to wake up, to work harder, to dream bigger. I used to believe that love, true love, could survive anything. Until the day she proved me wrong. It started on a quiet Sunday morning. The kind where sunlight slides through the curtains, painting golden lines on your skin, and you feel like the world outside doesn't matter. She was still asleep beside me, breathing softly, her hair a mess, but somehow perfect. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the person I want for the rest of my life. Back then, I was just a regular guy. I worked at a small marketing agency. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. But I was honest, loyal, and I loved her with everything I had. We met 3 years earlier at a friend's birthday party. She was new in town, confident, charming, with that spark in her eyes that could make a room feel alive. I was the quiet one, not the guy women instantly notice. But that night, for some reason, she noticed me. We talked for hours, long after the music stopped. About books, about dreams, about stupid little things that didn't matter but somehow felt important. When she smiled, I forgot what loneliness felt like. And when she touched my hand, I knew I didn't want to ever let go. Our relationship grew fast, almost too fast. Within months, she moved into my apartment. We built our small world together, cooking cheap pasta dinners, watching movies on my old couch, arguing about who'd do the laundry. It was imperfect, but it was ours. I remember her always saying, "We don't need money to be happy, right?" And I'd smile, not realizing how temporary that belief was for her. For a long time, things were good. We were partners, teammates, lovers. She'd bring me coffee when I worked late, leave little notes in my lunchbox. She said I made her feel safe, that no one had ever cared like I did. And I believed her, every word. But slowly, things began to change. It wasn't sudden, not like in the movies. It started small. Missed calls, short replies, that distant look in her eyes while I tried to talk about the future. At first, I thought she was just stressed. She'd started a new job at a real estate company. Big clients, big commissions, fancy dinners. I was proud of her. I told her she deserved it. But something in her started drifting away from me. I remember one night. She came home late, smelling of expensive perfume, her laughter fading as she closed the door behind her. I asked, half joking, "So, who's making you laugh like that these days?" She just smiled and said, "Don't be silly, baby. It's work." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But deep down, a part of me already knew. Still, I tried to hold on. I told myself every relationship goes through rough phases. That if I loved her enough, things would get better. So I planned little surprises, cooked dinner, left her love notes like before. But she barely noticed. Her phone always in her hand, face lit up by someone else's messages. Then came the night that changed everything. I was coming home early from work, a rare half day. I wanted to surprise her. Maybe take her out for dinner, remind her what we used to be. When I reached the apartment, I heard music playing, slow jazz, the kind she liked. But there was laughter too, a man's voice. At first, I froze. Maybe it was just a friend, I thought. Maybe her boss. Maybe nothing. But then I heard her say, softly, "You make me feel alive again." I don't remember dropping the grocery bag. I don't remember how long I stood outside that door. All I remember is the sound of my own heartbeat, loud, heavy, breaking apart inside my chest. I didn't go in. I couldn't. Instead, I walked away. For hours, I wandered the city, trying to convince myself that I was overreacting, that there must be some explanation. But every step I took made it harder to breathe. When I finally came back that night, she was alone. The lights were dim. She looked surprised to see me. "Hey," she said casually, "you're home early." I didn't answer. She looked nervous. Maybe she saw it in my face. "What's wrong?" she asked. And I said it quietly, Who was here? For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she laughed, that same fake laugh she used when she didn't want to tell the truth. Oh my God, are you jealous again? It's just work stuff. You seriously think I'd bring someone here? I stared at her, searching her eyes for honesty. But all I saw was guilt, faint but there. I didn't push further. I just nodded. And that night, I slept on the couch. She didn't even ask why. Over the next few weeks, the distance between us grew into silence. We barely talked, barely touched, barely existed as a couple. She started spending weekends with friends, and I started staying later at work. Anything to avoid facing what we'd become. Then one evening, she sat me down. Her voice calm, cold, almost rehearsed. "Ryan," she said, "I think we should take a break." A break. The word echoed in my head like a gunshot. I asked why. She said, "We've both changed. I just need to find myself." Find herself? After 3 years of love, dreams, and promises, she needed to find herself somewhere else. And just like that, she packed a bag, kissed my cheek, and walked out. No tears, no hesitation, just gone. For the next few days, I lived in silence. The apartment felt like a graveyard of memories. Her scent on the pillow, her photo on the fridge, her shoes by the door she never opened again. I tried to move on, but my heart wasn't ready. I kept replaying every moment, every laugh, every "I love you," trying to find where it all went wrong. Then one night, I opened social media, and there she was, smiling, happy, with another man, his arm around her. Her caption said, "Finally found real happiness." I stared at that post for a long time, my hands shaking, my chest tight. So that's what she meant by finding herself. She didn't need space. She needed someone else. That night, something inside me broke, but not in the way you'd expect. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was clarity. Cold, painful clarity. I realized that love, the kind I gave her, wasn't enough for someone who valued comfort over commitment. And while she was out there finding happiness, I was left picking up the pieces of a heart she'd carelessly shattered. But even then, I didn't hate her. Not yet. I just wanted answers. Little did I know, the day I'd get them would also be the day everything inside me changed forever. I didn't sleep much after that night. Her photo kept flashing in my mind. That smile, that man, that word, happiness. It was like every memory I'd loved had turned into a knife, cutting me from the inside. At first, I told myself I wouldn't look again, that I'd delete her, block her, erase everything. But love doesn't die just because you want it to. It lingers. It breathes in the shadows of your thoughts. And mine refused to let go. So I did what broken hearts often do. I kept watching. Every few days, I'd check her posts, her dinners, her trips, her laughter. And every time, it hurt a little less, but in a different way. Not softer, sharper. I started to see her differently. The woman who once cried in my arms, saying she could never live without me, now looked like she'd forgotten I ever existed. And the man beside her, his name was Adrian. I found out from mutual friends, apparently, he worked at her company, a senior manager, drove a luxury car, lived in one of those shiny glass apartments overlooking the city. He wasn't better than me, but he looked like everything she used to dream about. And maybe that was enough. I remember sitting on my couch that night, staring at their photo. She looked radiant. He looked proud. And I thought, maybe she just wanted more. Maybe I was the temporary chapter before her real story began. That thought haunted me for weeks. My days blurred into gray. Work became mechanical. I smiled when people spoke to me, but my eyes stayed somewhere else. Every sound in that apartment reminded me of her. Her laughter in the hallway, her perfume on the sheets. Even the silence sounded like her leaving. I tried to date again. Friends suggested it, said it'd help. But every woman I met felt like a stranger wearing Emma's ghost. No one laughed like her. No one said my name the way she did. And deep down, I hated that she still had that power. Then one evening, about 3 months later, I saw her in person. It was at a coffee shop near my office. I was waiting for a client, scrolling through emails, when I looked up, and there she was. She hadn't changed. Still stunning. Still carrying that effortless confidence. But now, she wasn't alone. Adrian was with her. They were sitting just a few tables away, laughing, whispering, holding hands. For a moment, time froze. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. It was like watching a movie I didn't audition for, but somehow ended up starring in, as the fool. She saw me. Our eyes met. Her smile faded instantly. For a second, I thought she might look away. But instead, she stood up, leaving him mid-sentence, and walked toward me. "Ryan," she said softly, almost surprised. I forced a smile. "Hey, Emma." She looked uncomfortable, like she hadn't planned for this part of her life to collide with the old one. "How have you been?" she asked, pretending to care. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to tell her how I'd spent nights awake replaying our memories, wondering what I'd done wrong. But all I said was, "I'm fine." She nodded, biting her lip. "That's good. I'm glad." There was an awkward silence. Her eyes darted toward Adrian, who was watching us with mild curiosity. "Is that your boss?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She hesitated. "Yeah, we've been seeing each other." The honesty stung, even though I already knew. I nodded, pretending it didn't matter. "Good for you," I said. "You look happy." Her expression softened, maybe with guilt, maybe pity. "Ryan, I didn't mean to hurt you." I almost laughed again. The way she said it, calm, casual, like it was an accident. Like betrayal could ever be unintentional. "You didn't just hurt me, Emma," I said quietly. "You erased me." For a second, she looked down. Then, in a small voice, she said, "I'm sorry." But sorry meant nothing now. It was like whispering to a wound after you'd already stabbed it. Before I could say more, Adrian walked up, confident, tall, with that smug charm rich men often wear. "Hey, babe," he said to her, placing his arm around her waist, almost possessively. Then he turned to me. "You must be the ex." The ex. Just 2 letters. But it felt like a lifetime of love reduced to a label. I didn't respond. I just stood up, smiled politely, and said, "Take care, both of you." Then I walked out before my pride broke in front of them. That night, I went home and smashed the last photo of us that hung on my wall. Not out of rage, but release. I finally understood. The person I loved no longer existed. She'd become someone else. Someone I didn't recognize. But heartbreak is a strange thing. It doesn't just fade away. It transforms. Over the next few months, I threw myself into work. Late nights, endless projects, anything to keep my mind off her. And slowly, something inside me started shifting. The pain that once crushed me started fueling me. Every memory of her became motivation. Every tear became purpose. I told myself, I'll rise again. Not for her, but because of her. Then, one evening, as if the universe wanted to test that promise, I saw her again. I was at a corporate networking event, invited by a client. Fancy hotel ballroom, champagne glasses, fake smiles. I was doing well by then. I'd earned a promotion, got new clients, dressed sharper, spoke with confidence. I wasn't the same Ryan she left behind. And then, I heard that voice. Her laugh. The one I thought I'd forgotten. I turned, and there she was. Emma, standing by the bar. Alone this time. She looked different. Not in a bad way, but emptier. Her eyes didn't shine the way they used to. Her smile looked forced. And when she saw me, the surprise on her face was undeniable. "Ryan," she said, approaching slowly. I smiled. "Emma, it's been a while." She nodded, studying me. "Wow, you look good. Really good." I shrugged. "Thanks. Life's been kind." Her gaze lingered longer than necessary. And in that moment, I realized she was no longer the one walking away. Now, she was the one watching someone else walk past her. We talked briefly, polite, surface level. She mentioned she wasn't with Adrian anymore. Said things didn't work out. I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. But as I watched her talk, I saw something I never expected: regret. It was in the way her voice trembled when she spoke about her new job, in the way her smile faltered every time I mentioned how well things were going for me. When I finally excused myself and walked away, she called out softly, "Ryan." I turned. She hesitated, then said, "You seem different." I smiled faintly. Maybe I just stopped needing people who could walk away that easily. Her eyes softened. Maybe guilt, maybe admiration, I couldn't tell. But as I left that night, a strange peace settled inside me. For the first time, I didn't feel broken. I felt powerful, like I had survived the fire she threw me into and came out forged, not burnt. But what I didn't realize then was that Emma wasn't done with me yet. Not even close. Because a few weeks later, she came back. And this time, she wasn't the same confident woman who left me. This time, she was desperate. It had been almost a year since she left me. A year of silence, growth, and quiet transformation. And just when I thought that chapter of my life had finally closed, fate, or maybe irony, decided to turn the page again. It was a rainy Thursday evening. I had just come home from work, exhausted but content. My apartment was no longer haunted by her memory. I'd redecorated, repainted, rebuilt everything from the ground up. It finally felt like mine. I poured myself a glass of wine, put on some soft jazz, and sat on the balcony, watching the rain paint streaks down the glass. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. At first, I ignored it. But then came another message. "Emma, Ryan, it's me. Please don't block me. I just need to talk." I stared at the screen for a long time. My first instinct was to delete it. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe closure, stopped me. I replied simply. "About what?" A few moments later, another message popped up. "Can we meet? Just once. Please. I need to explain." Explain? There was a time when I would have dropped everything for that word. Now it just made me sigh. Still, after a few minutes, I agreed. "Tomorrow, 6 p.m., same cafe." The next day, I went, not out of hope, but to see what remained of the woman who once shattered me. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting at the corner table, staring out the window. And the moment I saw her, I knew something had changed. She looked smaller, not physically, but in spirit. The confident, radiant Emma, who once laughed like the world belonged to her now, seemed fragile. Her eyes carried tiredness. Her smile, faint and nervous. "Ryan," she said softly as I sat down. "Emma." For a moment, we just looked at each other, strangers wearing familiar faces. "You look good," she said, trying to smile. "So do you," I lied. There was an awkward silence before she finally exhaled and said, "I don't even know where to start." "Try the truth," I said calmly. Her eyes dropped. She twisted her fingers nervously. "I made a mistake." I didn't respond. I just watched her. I thought I wanted something else. Something more exciting, more stable. Adrian made me believe he could give me everything I ever wanted. She paused, voice trembling. But it was all fake. He used me, lied to me. The moment I left my job, he moved on to someone else. I lost everything, Ryan. My job, my savings, my peace. Her words hung in the air, heavy, soaked in regret. And for the first time, I realized karma doesn't always come with thunder and flames. Sometimes it arrives quietly, wearing the same pain you once felt. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. "So now you want me to what?" "Feel sorry for you." "No," she whispered. "I just wanted to see you. To say I'm sorry. For everything. There was sincerity in her eyes, maybe even pain. But forgiveness? That wasn't mine to give anymore. You broke me, Emma, I said slowly. Do you know what that felt like? Watching you smile with someone else while I could barely breathe. Her eyes filled with tears. I know. I think about it every day. Do you? I asked, because I had to rebuild myself from the ashes of the person you left behind. I had to teach myself not to hate you, not to hate love. She wiped a tear, whispering, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wish things were different. I smiled faintly. Things are different. I'm not the same man you left. And that was true. I wasn't saying it to hurt her. I was saying it because I finally believed it. We talked for a little while longer, most of your talking, me listening. She told me about her failed relationships, her struggles, her loneliness. It was almost poetic. The girl who once left because she wanted more, now craving the simplicity she once threw away. Before leaving, she looked at me, voice trembling. Can we at least be friends? I smiled politely. Maybe someday. And then I walked away. I thought that would be the end. But it wasn't. Over the next few weeks, she started showing up everywhere. Texts, calls, random visits to my office building, just passing by. She'd bring coffee, act casual, but I could see it. She wanted back in. Part of me wanted to shut the door completely. But another part, the quiet, strategic part, saw something else. An opportunity. Not to hurt her, not physically, not cruelly, but to show her. To make her see what she had destroyed, what she had thrown away so carelessly. I didn't want revenge born out of anger. I wanted reversal. So I started letting her in. Slowly. I answered her messages. Met her for lunch sometimes. I laughed at her jokes again, though never fully. And every time, I could see the confusion in her eyes. She couldn't read me anymore. She was chasing a version of me that no longer existed. One night, she came over to my place. It felt strange, her standing at the same door she once walked out of. Nice place, she said softly, stepping in. Yeah, I redecorated. She looked around. New furniture, new photos, new life. None of it included her. We sat down. She talked. I listened. Then, out of nowhere, she said it. I miss you, Ryan. I stayed silent. She moved closer. I miss us. The way you made me feel safe. Loved. Real. For a second, I saw the girl I fell in love with. Not the woman who betrayed me, but the one who once held my hand when I had nothing. And for a dangerous moment, I almost believed her. Then I remembered standing outside that door a year ago, hearing her laugh with another man. And just like that, the moment passed. I looked her in the eyes and said quietly, You miss the comfort. Not me. She froze. I stood up and walked to the window. Do you know what's funny, Emma? You left me because you thought I couldn't give you the life you wanted. Now you want me because I built it without you. Her lips trembled. That's not true. It is, I said gently. You're not in love with me. You're in love with what I've become. She tried to speak, but words failed her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, I deserve that. Maybe, I said, but not with me. The silence that followed was the loudest I'd ever heard. After a few seconds, she stood up, quietly gathered her things, and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she turned and said softly, I hope one day you forgive me, even if we never speak again. And for the first time, I believed she meant it. But forgiveness wasn't my goal. Peace was. When the door closed behind her, I felt something lift off my chest. Not because I'd hurt her, but because I didn't need to anymore. She'd already punished herself by losing me. Still, life had a strange sense of timing. Because just when I thought that was the real ending, she came back again, not out of love this time, but desperation. It was late winter when I got another call. Her voice was shaky. Ryan, I really need to see you. What happened? I asked. She hesitated, then whispered, I think I've made another mistake. I didn't know why I agreed to meet her again. Maybe curiosity, maybe closure, or maybe because deep down I wanted to see what rock bottom looked like for someone who once stood so high. When she arrived, she looked exhausted, pale, drained, eyes swollen from crying. She'd lost her job again, she said. Rent overdue, family distant, friends gone. And then she said something I never expected. Ryan, I don't know where else to go. For a long moment, I just stared at her. The woman who once told me I wasn't enough now stood before me, broken, asking for help. And that's when my plan truly began. Not to destroy her, but to rebuild her just enough to understand what she had destroyed in me. This time, I would set the terms. When she said she had nowhere else to go, something in me shifted. Not to anger, not to cruelty, but to a quiet resolve. I had rebuilt my life without her. I had found strength where there had been emptiness. Now, I chose to use that strength, not to humiliate her, but to show her slowly, clearly, what she had lost and what it cost to take someone for granted. Revenge, I decided, would not be loud. It would be precise. It would be a lesson wrapped in kindness. I wanted her to understand the difference between love and convenience, between warmth and entitlement. If she wanted to come back, I would set the price, dignity, not drama. So I made rules. My rules. Rule 1, no quick forgiveness. She had practiced leaving like a habit. I would break that habit with patience. Rule 2, kindness with boundaries. Help, yes, but on my terms. Rule 3, let her witness my life without her and make that life undeniable. I started small. She needed a place to stay. I didn't offer my couch on my bed. That would have been the easy way, the predictable way that led back to being used. Instead, I found a small, furnished studio in a quiet building not far from my work. A friend of mine owed me a favor. I used it. I told him of the truth. You can stay there for a while. Not with me, but close enough to rebuild. She cried when I told her. I could see the relief and shame wrestling on her face. Relief because a roof meant stability. Shame because she had to accept help from the man she'd walked away from. I moved only what she absolutely needed into the studio: a bed, a lamp, a chair, a table. No photos, no keepsakes, no reminders of us. I wanted her to start with a blank slate, the same blank slate I had been left with when she closed the door. She thanked me with a shaky voice. I don't know how to pay you back. You don't have to, I said, but you will do something for me. She looked up, hope flickering. Anything. Learn to take responsibility, I said. Be honest with yourself. Get a job. Don't ask for favors. Start small and prove you can build without taking someone else's life apart. It sounded harsh when I said it out loud, but I meant it. I wanted her to taste the slow, uncomfortable work of getting back up. Not because I wanted her to fail, but because I wanted her to truly understand why people who love don't leave like neglected objects. She agreed, and she started. At first, it was humiliating for her. She applied for jobs beneath her resume, took late shifts at a cafe, learned how to manage bills. It was raw to watch someone who once had a tailored suit and endless invitations now wear an apron and serve coffee. But I watched with a strange mix of pity and respect. She showed up. She worked. She cried in the bathroom the first week, and then wiped her face and went back out to take orders. I kept my distance. I checked in with a message now and then. Are you okay? Nothing more. I wanted her to know I still cared, but not so much that she could use it as a safety net. She was building a ladder, and I refused to be the person who held the rope while she climbed without learning to grip the wood. Meanwhile, I focused on magnifying what she had lost. I threw myself into projects that mattered. Meaningful work, friendships that were real, small wins that were consistent. I didn't do it to taunt her. I did it because I believe the best revenge is a life well lived. So I let her see me, in controlled doses. She started coming to a few group events with mutual friends. I let her sit across the room while I led a presentation at work that got applause. I would speak at a charity event, and she would be in the crowd, eyes on me. No dramatic confrontations, just a man being steady, competent, and kind. There were moments that felt like temptation. She would reach out late at night, voice trembling, wanting to talk about what happened. "I missed the way you listened," she said once. "I listened," I replied. "When you left, you didn't leave a conversation. You left an agreement. You walked away from promises. If you want to talk, it will be about the truth, not excuses." Her regrets were loud, but her actions needed to match them. And actions don't happen overnight. Part of my plan was to give her power in small doses, the chance to prove she could keep something of her own. I helped her rewrite her resume, introduced her to a mentor, and nudged her toward opportunities without stepping into the rescue role. I wanted her to feel the pride of doing it herself. There was a moment I remember clearly. She called me after her first week at a new job. Her voice was tired, but there was a spark. "I made espresso drinks for 8 hours and didn't quit," she laughed. "It's hard, Ryan, but I didn't give up. I'm proud of you," I said. It was true. Part of me wanted to say more, to offer warmth that would mend everything. But I stayed firm. Keep going. The slow burn of this plan was sometimes painful. There were nights when she would stand outside my window, watching the life we once shared from a distance, and I would watch her watching me. It would sting momentarily, a reminder of what had been, but then I'd remember why I was doing this. I wasn't trying to punish her for cruelty. I was teaching her accountability. As weeks turned into months, people started noticing. Mutual friends asked why I was being so patient. "Isn't she the one who left?" they'd say. And I'd smile and answer, "She's learning. Let her learn." I met resistance, of course. Sometimes my kindness felt like weakness to others, and even to myself. Friends told me I deserved better. They urged me to cut ties and move on completely. But I understood something they didn't. Revenge that heals is rare. I wanted Emma to come back not because I wanted her, but because I wanted her to become someone who wouldn't leave again. There were cracks, too. Compassion can be dangerous when mixed with old habits. One night, she called sobbing about a debt collector, and the old Ryan, the man who loved too much, wanted to help. He wanted to give money to erase her pain immediately. But the new Ryan paused. I told her to call a financial counselor and gave her contacts. "I'll help you plan," I said, "but I won't bail you out." She was furious at first, but then she calmed. She called me later to say she'd made a budget. That call warmed me in a way nothing else did. The plan was working. Not perfectly, but in real, measurable ways. She started to stand straighter. She smiled without looking to someone else for validation. She learned the dignity of earning respect instead of demanding it. And yet, my plan included another element, subtle reminders. I needed her to remember what she had thrown away, and I wanted the memory to be unglamorous, not public humiliation. That cheapens the lesson, but a quiet, unavoidable contrast between her choices and my life. So I did what any patient architect of change would do. I built something that would be seen. I remodeled my career in small, strategic ways. I took on a leadership role at work that required visibility. I started a side project that showcased my talents, something she had always admired. I took photography classes and used those skills at events. I began mentoring young colleagues, and those people spoke highly of me in circles she frequented. I didn't flaunt these things. I simply let them be. The tipping point came when I launched a community program, a simple initiative that helped young professionals find work and build portfolios. It was authentic, helpful, and it connected me to a network that mattered. The launch night was a quiet success, a modest turnout, heartfelt thanks, and a small write-up from a local magazine. I knew Emma would see it. She always read those things. And when she did, she texted me. I saw the article. You look happy. I answered, I am. It's been a lot of work. Her reply was short. I'm proud. Pride from her felt like a tooth in my chest. It was welcome and painful at the same time. But pride without action wasn't enough. I needed her growth to be steady and true. There were tests, moments designed by fate more than by me that forced her to choose. A weekend when her boss at the cafe needed help, a double shift, and she showed up tired but present. A day when an old friend offered her a shortcut she'd once taken, she refused. She started to have real, small victories. She paid a month's rent on time, surprised her landlord, and left a note thanking the people who'd helped her along the way. The note was short, humble, and earnest. Then came the most difficult part of my plan, letting her in again, just a little. I invited her to a dinner I hosted for colleagues. Not a date, not a reunion, a group of friends, food, conversation. She came. She sat at the table and listened while I spoke about resilience and second chances. After dinner, she stayed behind to help clean up. We talked for a while, not about us, but about the kind of life she wanted now. She spoke about honest work, about steady love, about not running again. Her words had weight. They felt measured. They were not the frantic promises of someone begging for forgiveness. They were the sober vows of someone building a new life. That night, as she left, she turned to me and said, I don't expect you to take me back. Good, I replied. Don't ask me to. Ask yourself if you can keep what you build. She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time since she came back, I saw acceptance. Not of me, but of responsibility. It's a small difference, but a real one. The rest of the plan unfolded slowly, naturally. She learned to stand without leaning on me. I watched her rebuild with a kind of distant tenderness. And as she did, I kept building my life as well. Not around the idea of revenge, but around the idea of living without regret. There were days when anger crept back, when a memory of her leaving would sting and the urge to retaliate would whisper in my ear. But then I would picture her standing alone in that small studio, learning her way back to herself. And I'd think, this is better. A quiet life reformed is a better teacher than loud punishment. In the months that followed, Emma changed. She didn't become perfect. She failed at times. She cried. She made mistakes. But she also showed up, and that, above all, was the lesson I wanted her to learn. I never sought applause for what I did. My revenge was patient work, giving her space to fail, giving her structure to grow, giving her a mirror to see what she had lost. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the power dynamic shifted. She no longer chased me. She no longer assumed I'd be there to catch her. She built a life that might one day be worthy of love. Maybe not mine, but hers. The final part of my plan was never humiliation or triumph. It was clarity. I wanted us both to know the truth. That love doesn't belong to the fearful, the fleeting, or the selfish. It belongs to those who choose to stay when it's hard. There was a night, about a year after she first came back, when she stood at my door. Rain had come again, and the sound on the roof felt like an old metronome keeping time for everything we'd been through. She looked at me and, without dramatic flair, said, I'm sorry I left. I nodded. I know. She took a breath. I'm not asking you to take me back. I came to tell you that I've changed, and to thank you for letting me learn. I studied her face. She looked tired and honest. Then live honestly, I said. That will be enough. She smiled, small, real, and walked away. That was the end of my formal plan. Not with a triumphant scene. Not with slamming doors or vindictive reveals. Just two people who had learned, in their own painful ways, what it meant to lose and rebuild. I had wanted revenge once, but by the time she left that night, Revenge had become something quieter and more valuable, justice through growth. I had taught her through limits and tenderness. She had learned through hardship, and I had learned how to hold my heart without giving it away to ease someone else's conscience. The story wasn't over. It rarely is. But for the first time since she walked out, I felt unshaken. I felt whole. And yet, there was one last turn the world had saved for both of us. Something that would test whether lessons stick or fade when life tilts again. Time has a strange way of folding over itself. Just when you think you've reached the calm, it sends back an echo of your past. Not to hurt you, but to test whether you've really healed. It had been a full year since Emma left my doorstep that rainy night. The night she said she was grateful and ready to move on. Since then, our lives had drifted apart quietly, like two boats in different rivers. I had peace now. My work was stable, my small circle of friends genuine, and my heart no longer felt like a half-healed wound. I had learned to enjoy silence again. I would think of her sometimes, not with anger anymore, but with a kind of distant compassion. She was part of the road that shaped me, and I had made peace with that. I even hoped she was doing well somewhere, that she had found balance, maybe even love. But fate, I've learned, doesn't close chapters so easily. It was late autumn when I saw her again. I had gone to a corporate conference in another city, a 3-day leadership event. I was standing in the hotel lobby, waiting for a colleague, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. It wasn't her voice exactly. It was laughter, soft and rising, the same laugh that once filled my kitchen. I turned, and there she was. Emma stood across the lobby in a sharp blazer, a lanyard around her neck, speaking to a group of executives. She looked composed, confident, not like the woman who once cried in my doorway. For a second, the world around me blurred. Time folded, memories cracked open. I thought I'd feel anger or pain or longing, but what I felt was stillness. She noticed me moments later. Our eyes met, and in that brief, frozen second, everything, all the history, the hurt, the lessons seemed to swirl silently between us. She excused herself and walked toward me, her steps steady but her eyes uncertain. "Ryan," she said, almost in a whisper. "Emma." My voice came out calm, even. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said. "I didn't either." We stood there, awkward but not bitter. It was the kind of silence that comes when two people have too much to say but no right words left to say it. Finally, she smiled, small and fragile. "You look good," she said. "You too," I replied. And I meant it. She did look good, not just physically, but grounded, like she had found a version of herself she'd been chasing. We exchanged a few polite words, and then she was called away to her group. I watched her go, a quiet satisfaction stirring inside me. She had rebuilt herself, and I had rebuilt myself too. That should have been the end of it. But life, or karma, had other plans. That evening, at the networking dinner, we were assigned to the same table. 12 people, round table, soft lighting. She sat across from me. The universe has a dark sense of humor. As the dinner went on, I realized she wasn't just attending the conference. She was representing a new firm, a growing firm. And that firm, ironically, was about to become our company's major partner for a project I was leading. We were about to work together again. When she realized it too, I saw her eyes widen. She hesitated before speaking. "Wait," she said softly. "You're leading the SkyTech partnership proposal?" "Yes," I said. Her voice dropped. "Then, I guess that means we'll be working together." The words hung in the air like a spark that refused to fade. The following weeks were strange, almost cinematic. Professional meetings, group discussions, long strategy sessions where we had to sit across from each other and pretend the past wasn't in the room. She was good at her job, composed, intelligent, precise. But sometimes when she thought I wasn't looking, I caught her staring, with that same look of quiet guilt and longing. One evening, after a late meeting, she asked, "Can we talk? Just personally?" I hesitated. Every instinct told me not to mix the past with the present. But something inside me, curiosity, closure, said yes. We went to a small cafe across from the office. She ordered tea. I ordered black coffee. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I know I shouldn't bring this up again, but seeing you like this, it's made me realize something." I looked at her, waiting. "I didn't understand love before," she said quietly. "I thought love was comfort, safety, but what I had with you was trust, and I destroyed it. And when I lost that, I realized what I'd done." Her eyes glistened. "You taught me how to stand again, Ryan, and I'll never forget that." I took a deep breath. "I didn't do it for you," I said. "I did it because I had to learn how to stand too." She nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "Still, thank you." We sat in silence again, the kind that wasn't heavy, just full of understanding. For the first time, I felt no need to fix, no urge to punish. Maybe that was my final victory, not needing revenge anymore. But just when I thought that peace had truly arrived, the universe tested me one more time. A week later, my boss called me into his office. "We need to talk about the SkyTech deal," he said, his tone uneasy. Apparently, SkyTech had proposed a change, a new clause that heavily favored their side. It was suspicious, almost manipulative. And the person who had submitted that change was Emma. My stomach sank. For a brief, foolish moment, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she didn't know. But when I confronted her later that day, she didn't deny it. "I did send the new clause," she said, looking me straight in the eyes. "But it wasn't my decision. My manager insisted." "You could have told me," I said. "I tried," she said, "but it was complicated. They—" "Stop." My voice was firm. "You knew this deal mattered to me. You knew what it meant, and you still didn't say anything." The old wound inside me reopened, not because of the betrayal itself, but because of the pattern. She had promised she'd changed. She had promised honesty. And yet, here we were again, standing on the same cliff edge. She looked down, ashamed. "I didn't want to lose my job," she whispered. "And I didn't want to lose my trust in you," I said quietly. "But I guess we don't always get what we want." For a few days, I was silent. I didn't react in anger. Instead, I observed. I gathered information. And the more I looked, the clearer it became. SkyTech was trying to manipulate the partnership to gain inside leverage. They were using Emma as a pawn because of our history. They thought I'd bend. They thought wrong. If this was another betrayal, then it would be the last one. But this time, I wouldn't meet it with heartbreak. I'd meet it with strategy. I prepared a revised version of the contract, exposing every loophole they had inserted. I added a compliance clause that made any breach instantly terminable. I presented it at the joint meeting with both teams present. Emma was there. Her team leader was there too. When I walked in with my documents, I could feel the tension in the room. I began my presentation calmly, walking them through every section, highlighting the manipulative changes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply laid out the truth, piece by piece, line by line. At the end, I said, integrity isn't just a word on paper. It's the foundation of trust between partners. And trust, once broken, doesn't rebuild easily. The room was silent. SkyTech's leader shifted uncomfortably. Emma looked pale. My boss leaned forward and said, "Ryan's right. We'll go with his version." Meeting adjourned. It was over. Clean, professional, powerful. After everyone left, Emma stayed behind. Her voice shook when she spoke. "You knew, didn't you? You knew I didn't want to be part of it." "I knew," I said. "But I also knew that silence helps no one." She swallowed hard. "You could have destroyed me in there." "I didn't have to," I said. You're already standing at the edge. Whether you fall or step back, that's up to you. Tears welled in her eyes, but she nodded slowly. You're right. I messed up again, but not like before. This time, I'm going to fix it. And she did. A week later, she resigned from that firm. She called me once, not to apologize, but to tell me that she'd reported the manipulative practices to higher management. It had cost her the job, but she didn't regret it. I'm done being someone who hides behind excuses, she said. Good, I replied softly. Then maybe you've finally learned what truth costs. That was the last time we spoke for a long while. But her decision did something inside me. It broke the final link between who we were and who we had become. Her resignation was her redemption and my closure. Months later, I heard she'd started a small consulting firm, helping young professionals find honest work, the same way I once helped her. When I read that, I smiled. Maybe the circle was complete now. Maybe the lesson had finally reached its destination. And me? I kept moving forward, not with vengeance, not with pride, but with peace. Because real revenge isn't destroying someone who hurt you. It's showing them that their betrayal didn't destroy you. When I think about Emma now, I don't feel hatred. I don't even feel sorrow. I feel gratitude. She taught me that love without respect is just illusion. That forgiveness doesn't mean weakness. And that sometimes the best way to win is simply to live better. That night, as I walked home from work, the air smelled like rain again, the same scent as the night she left. Only this time, it didn't sting. It felt like cleansing, like closure. I looked up at the sky and whispered, not to her, but to the version of me that once broke down on the floor, you made it. And I meant it, because in the end, the story wasn't about her betrayal. It was about my becoming. And that was the real revenge. It's strange how silence becomes your greatest friend once you've made peace with your past. For so long, I used to fill the quiet with noise, memories, questions, regrets. I'd replay every word Emma had said, every look she had given me, every moment that shattered my trust. But now, I sit in silence, and it feels whole. It feels earned. It feels like peace finally made its way home. Life didn't change overnight after Emma left for good. Healing never does. It's slow, uneven, and sometimes frustrating. But I noticed something remarkable. The less I tried to forget, the more naturally the pain faded. I stopped fighting the memories. I let them come and go like waves. They stopped hurting when I stopped resisting them. I learned to see the story for what it really was, not a tragedy, not a betrayal, but a transformation. Every heartbreak, every sleepless night, every tear I once hid from the world, all of it shaped me into someone stronger. Someone who could stand tall without needing validation. Someone who could love again, not out of fear of being alone, but because love itself is worth the risk. That's the strange thing about revenge. You think you want to make the other person feel your pain. But when you really grow, you realize what you wanted all along wasn't their suffering. It was your freedom. Freedom from needing answers. Freedom from carrying resentment like armor. Freedom from the version of yourself that kept begging for closure. That's what letting go really means. It's not about forgetting. It's about remembering differently. I started seeing Emma's betrayal as the beginning of my awakening. She broke something in me, yes, but what broke wasn't my soul, it was my illusions. The illusion that love is enough when there's no respect. The illusion that forgiveness means letting people walk over you. The illusion that kindness always wins in the short term. Sometimes the only way to become who you're meant to be is to lose who you used to be. Months turned into years. Seasons changed quietly. I kept building my life, slowly, deliberately. I moved into a better apartment, not luxurious, but filled with peace. I took more time for myself, reading, walking, traveling to small, quiet places that didn't demand attention. I learned the beauty of solitude. And one day, out of nowhere, something beautiful happened. I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about her in weeks. Not because I forced myself not to, but because I didn't need to anymore. That was the day I truly forgave her. Not with words, not with a message or a call, but with silence. Forgiveness doesn't need witnesses. It's something you feel quietly, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. I think that's when I began to understand what justice really is. It's not punishment. It's balance. Emma's life went on too, I heard. She kept her consulting work, started volunteering, mentoring young people. She never reached out again, and she didn't need to. Her silence was respect, not avoidance. And in a strange way, that was her apology. We didn't become friends again. We didn't rekindle anything. We simply existed, two parallel lives that once collided, learned, and then moved forward separately. And that's okay. Not every love story has to end with reunion. Some stories end with redemption, and that's just as powerful. People often ask what it feels like to finally move on. It's not fireworks. It's not sudden joy. It's quiet, the kind of quiet that comes when you stop expecting anything from the past. It's waking up one morning, making coffee, looking out the window, and realizing you're okay. You survived the thing you thought would destroy you. And that survival, that calm acceptance, becomes your ultimate revenge. There's a quote I once read: "Forgive others, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace." That line stayed with me. Because it's true. The person who hurt you might never understand what they did. They might never apologize, or they might come back years later with tears and regret. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is your peace, your growth, your dignity. That's what I learned the hard way. A few months after my final conversation with Emma, something unexpected happened. I met someone new, not through dating apps or elaborate setups, just a simple encounter at a bookstore. Her name was Claire. She wasn't like Emma at all. She didn't try to impress. She didn't chase attention. She spoke softly, but with confidence. We started with conversations about books, then about life, then about the small, ordinary joys that make days worth living. At first, I was cautious. The ghosts of betrayal don't vanish easily. Every time she smiled, a small part of me whispered, "Don't trust it. Don't fall again." But then I remembered what I'd promised myself, not to let the past dictate the future. So I let her in, slowly, carefully, but willingly. With her, I learned what love looks like when it's gentle. Not perfect, not flashy, but steady. It didn't erase what Emma did, but it proved something more important. That being hurt once doesn't mean you're broken forever. You can love again without fear if you've made peace with your scars. Sometimes late at night, I still think about that entire chapter, how it all unfolded. The betrayal, the slow revenge, the quiet redemption. And I realized something I never saw before. Emma's betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of my transformation. It forced me to build the kind of strength that peace requires. Because peace isn't for the weak. Peace is for those who have seen chaos, lived through it, and chosen calm anyway. That's the hardest kind of revenge. Choosing serenity when anger is easier. If you're listening to this right now, maybe you've been betrayed too. Maybe someone walked out on you when you needed them most. Maybe you're carrying the weight of why and how could they. And maybe, right now, you're thinking about revenge, about making them feel what they made you feel. Let me tell you this. You can seek revenge. You can fight. You can shout. You can expose them. And maybe for a moment, you'll feel powerful. But that power will fade. Because revenge that comes from anger burns fast. It leaves you empty again. The real revenge, the kind that lasts, is becoming someone they can't hurt anymore. Becoming someone who doesn't need their apology. Becoming someone who looks back and feels nothing but calm. That's how you win. not by making them cry, but by making yourself proud. The hardest day wasn't when she left. The hardest day was the one after, when I realized I had to rebuild myself without any guarantee of being loved again. But that's the thing. Rebuilding isn't about finding someone new. It's about finding yourself first. And once you do, no betrayal, no heartbreak, no loss can ever take that away again. Pain changes people, but it's up to you whether it changes you for better or worse. Emma's betrayal taught me bitterness for a while. Then, slowly, it taught me wisdom. It showed me what boundaries mean, what self-respect looks like, and what love truly costs when it's real. If you're going through something similar, remember, forgiveness is not weakness. Letting go is not losing. And walking away in peace is not surrender. It's victory in disguise. If I could speak to the man I was back then, the man crying on the floor, wondering how everything went wrong, I'd tell him, don't rush your healing. Don't chase answers. The storm will pass, and when it does, you'll see yourself clearly, maybe for the first time. And that version of you will make everything worth it. Because that's what I learned. Pain isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to shape you. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment, they're all sculptors, carving away the weaker pieces until only truth remains. And that truth is simple. You are stronger than the person who broke you. So when people ask me now what happened between me and Emma, I don't talk about betrayal or revenge. I say, we both learned. She learned what it means to lose someone loyal, and I learned what it means to survive loss with grace. And that's all that matters. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply moving on, quietly, peacefully, and completely unbothered.